Welcome to the Healing Waves Reiki podcast. I'm your host, Cathy Reiki Master teacher, spiritual mentor, intuitive, and physical therapist. This is a grounded, heart-centered space where we explore Reiki, energy, and the science and spirit of healing. How Reiki supports the body, deepens intuition, regulates the nervous system, and helps transform the experience of healing. Where Reiki meets science, intuition meets practice, and healing becomes more human. If you're curious about Reiki, drawn to deeper healing, or seeking a more connective and intuitive way to care for yourself or others, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Welcome back to the Healing Waves Reiki podcast. Over the past several episodes, we've explored anxiety in the nervous system, talked about what it means to be an empath or highly sensitive person, discussed the importance of protecting our energy, and learned how the simple practice of self-Reiki can help us reconnect with ourselves each day. Today, I want to bring all those conversations together through the story of someone whose journey beautifully reflects so many of those themes. My guest is Alyse Palfini, founder of Fox and Moon, Reiki Master, intuitive empath, and someone who first came to Reiki during a season of anxiety and grief. What I love about Alyse's story is that it reminds us healing isn't just something we learn about, it's something we experience. Her journey took her from feeling overwhelmed and disconnected to discovering a practice that not only transformed her own life, but ultimately became the path she now shares with others. Today, we're talking about what anxiety felt like in her body, how Reiki supported her healing, what she discovered about her own sensitivity along the way, and how that journey eventually led her to become a Reiki master herself. Alyse, welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me today, Cathy. I'm so excited to be here.
Alyse, the pleasure is all mine. So, take us back to when we first started working together. What was happening in your life at that time?
Honestly, I was a mess. I was at my lowest point with anxiety. It was actually only a few days after the worst panic attack I ever had. Um, I just got back from Florida. I was in the airport. I had horrible, horrible panic attack. And I've been struggling with postpartum anxiety and OCD since having my daughter. And at that point, she was about to turn 4. So it wasn't just this like short phase after having a baby. It was something I was carrying for years at that point. And looking back, so much of my anxiety came from fear and grief. My family and I went through unimaginable loss when I was pregnant with Louise, and then again about a year later. And those experiences completely changed the way I looked at motherhood, health, and safety. I was scared all the time. And on top of that, Louise was born 3 weeks early, and we had our own challenges initially. And I remember coming home from the hospital, and I was like terrified. I felt like I had to protect her from everything. I had such a hard time trusting anyone else to take care of her. I just kept asking myself, like, what if something happens? Like, I was the only person I could trust, to make sure she was safe. And I think that's what grief and trauma can do. My nervous system was always waiting for something bad to happen because I experienced something so horrible. I don't know if I would have experienced postpartum anxiety the same way if we hadn't gone through those losses. I think it was just the perfect storm at that point. So I started therapy shortly after Louise was born, just talk therapy. And that was such an important part of my healing. And my therapist helped me understand my anxiety and OCD tendencies and gave me tools for those moments when the fear showed up, but I wasn't getting to the root of it. Like I couldn't release, what was happening. Like I can deal with the symptoms, but I couldn't get down to the root.
So it wasn't just worrying thoughts. Your body was living in that state too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So what did a typical day feel like in your nervous system during that period of your life?
A typical day wasn't always so extreme. It wasn't like every day I was having a panic attack, which I think a lot of people maybe misunderstand. From the outside, I was functioning. I was working. I was being a mom. I was doing things and having happy moments. I was working remotely at that time. And eventually, I went freelance as a graphic designer. So I was making my own schedule. I was able to be home with Louise. We would go around town, do our little things, go on our little adventures and have fun. But I was within my comfort zone, so I was okay.
What about in your physical body? Did you feel tension? Did you feel heart racing at
Yeah,
times?
I always felt like I was on like the lookout for something to happen. Like I was still on guard. Like from the outside, I was doing the things and like I said, like I was happy, I was having fun, but I was always just like looking for the danger ahead of it. I was trying to control the
So you were in
situation
fight or flight,
at all times.
right?
Yeah, like you wouldn't have been able to see that from the outside, but yeah, I was in fight, and I don't even think I realized it. I thought I was just being, I'm a mom, I'm protective, I'm trying to keep her from getting hurt, or I'm trying to, see two steps ahead. But there was always that underlying fear, and a lot of it was around Louise and keeping her safe. When anxiety did hit, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Well, there's a difference between anxiety and panic attack,
Yeah.
right? Anxiety is that slow burn
Mm-hmm.
that you feel all the time,
Yeah.
and the panic attack is the crescendo,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
it all comes to a
Oh,
head.
God.
So it feels like you were living in a state of anxiety
Yeah. I
and
would wake up. Yeah.
experienced those episodes
Yeah.
during it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't every day like I would have a panic attack. But you're right. Like I would wake up sometimes and I would feel that pit in my stomach. And it's like, I don't even have anything to be nervous about. Like, why am I waking up with this pit in my stomach? And yes, then it would manifest into this panic attack. And then
Sure.
it's like, I'm not driving on the highway because I had a panic attack, or I don't want to go on a trip because I don't want to go to the airport because I had a panic attack. So it did manifest into this physical issue.
Sure. I think that's something many listeners can relate to, feeling like your body never fully shuts off. So, when did you first realize that you weren't just experiencing your own emotions, that you were often picking up on the emotions and energy of people around you?
I don't think I fully understood that until I started with Reiki. Like I don't think I fully understood that until like our first session.
Okay.
And then of course diving more into that once I started learning Reiki. But once I had my first session with you, that's really when it kind of clicked. Like I always was sensitive, but I didn't realize that I wasn't able to like take on everyone's energy and not just deal with it. Like I didn't realize I was carrying it.
Now, do you think that sensitivity contributed to the anxiety you were experiencing?
Oh, yes. Definitely. I think it was, at that point when I experienced the trauma and the grief, that was like when everything spilled over. Like if it wasn't that, it was going to be something else. But that was such a big thing that happened. And of course, I just, I was pregnant and then I just had Louise and emotions, hormones, like everything was like, it was the perfect storm of this anxiety. And that's how it spilled over.
Sure. And you weren't the only person experiencing those feelings. So you were absorbing the grief
That's a good point.
and experience of everyone around you at the same time.
Correct. Actually, never thought of that until just now. That's very true. We were all going through that grief and still are. And you're right. I think I was trying to be strong for everyone else, and really, I was not the strong one.
I
Or
wouldn't say
maybe,
you
or I
weren't
was
a
taking
strong
it.
one. You were absorbing it all.
Yeah.
You were absorbing it
Yeah.
all. So I just want to make one thing very clear, both to you and to my listeners out there. Sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity is a gift. So at what point did you realize that sensitivity was actually a gift?
You're right, Cathy. And that's something I didn't realize until I experienced Reiki and meeting with you. I didn't realize that, how deeply I feel, enables my intuitive gifts. I just didn't know how to manage them. So once we started working together and doing Reiki, and you taught me about protecting myself and setting boundaries and being able to hold space for people not within my own body and my own energy, then I was able to use those intuitive gifts to help people and not hurt myself in the process.
So sensitivity with grounding gives clarity, but sensitivity without grounding and protection causes overwhelm. And that's what you were experiencing first.
Correct.
And
Correct.
with the protection, with the grounding, it became clarity for you.
Yeah.
Alyse, before your first Reiki session, what did you think Reiki was?
So I was always a spiritual person, so I was always open to things like Reiki. I don't think I fully understood exactly what was going on with the energy moving and the chakras. And I've, had a few Reiki sessions with other practitioners before I saw you, but I didn't fully understand it. My previous experiences were very relaxing, but they were different. Again, I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't know where I might be holding energy or how the emotions and experiences I had were showing up energetically. And at that point, when we met, I was looking for something deeper. I was researching Reiki for anxiety and grief. And I just knew I needed to find someone that I connected with and trusted. And when I was in Florida before we met, I had this experience that I'll never forget. I was at the beach and I was standing at the edge of the water and I was by myself and I just started talking to God, like out loud. I said, "I'm sorry. I've been so angry. I don't know what to do anymore and I need your help." Because at that point I was like so angry. Like I was just like I didn't believe in anything. I was like I don't know why these bad things happen to my family. Like I was angry. And I think at that point, it was the first time in a long time I finally surrendered and I stopped trying to control everything. After I came home from that trip, I was talking to my husband and my mom, and I was saying to them, like, I can't keep living like this. I need to take care of this now, especially while Louise is, too young to like understand what was happening. And I didn't want anxiety making decisions for me anymore. I didn't want to be the mom that can't drive on the parkway or, I didn't want fear deciding what I could and couldn't do. When, I got home, I still call this like divine timing because I just like thought of Reiki again. And I literally Googled Reiki near me and your website popped up. And I remember seeing your picture and immediately feeling like, yes, like I'm booking with her. I felt like I could feel your energy before we even met. And you just felt calming and safe. And I actually tell my clients this story all the time when they come in with anxiety because again, it's where my Reiki journey started. And I filled out like your form on your website, and you had me booked. I think that week for a session. Like I saw you in 3 days after that.
Well, Alyse, I really believe that both of our spirit teams were working to get us together for the journey that lies ahead. So,
I agree.
so what did you actually experience after that first session?
Oh, girl, I could picture it still. I could picture myself leaving your Reiki shed with this immediate, literally immediate and unmistakable feeling of relief. Like I finally took a an exhale. And I had this lightness, and I honestly didn't think I could feel like that again. And uh, every time I think about this, I keep picturing myself walking on clouds because I physically felt lighter, and I was so shocked that I felt that shift just immediately after that first session. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I went home and I felt relaxed. Like I literally got off your table and felt lighter. And I know we both know I cried my eyes out on your Reiki table. I think I finally released so much emotional weight that I was carrying. And I don't think it was just the Reiki session itself. It was everything that came with it. It was our conversations about anxiety, the nervous system, fight or flight, our monkey brain. And it just finally made me understand what was happening in my body. And it wasn't like I was going crazy. Like there was a reason why I was feeling like this. And you recommended Pat Longo's book, The Gifts Beneath Your Anxiety.
It's a great book.
It's a great book. I recommend it to like all of my clients with
So do
anxiety. I have it in my studio to sell, but I've never sold one. I just give it to people because it's just something that you need to read if you have anxiety, because it made me feel very seen. It was a huge turning point. My copy of that book has 1,000 post-its in it. Uh, but basically, it talks about how intuitive people and empaths can absorb and carry so much energy from people and the world around them, and it starts showing up as anxiety. And, that made so much sense to me. And it talks about like, you know, our empathic gifts, our sensitivities, and how we feel so deeply for other people. And also, you taught me the surround, ground, and shield meditation from Pat's book, which I use every day. And I teach probably 90% of my clients. And Louise and I do it together, every morning in the car on our way to school. Like we do it as like our prayer. So we surround ourselves in white light. We picture the roots growing from our feet to ground us. And then we put our shield on, and then we add in a little bit of gratitude and our intention for the day. And we say amen. And that's our little prayer.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice. And she's getting to practice that with me. So, yes, Reiki itself was incredibly healing just from day one, and honestly life changing. And it finally gave me understanding, validation, and actual tools. And I felt like, okay, I can work through this.
That's wonderful. So, Alyse, was there something about that experience that made you want to continue?
Actually, there was a Reiki experience after that first session that really made me want to continue. It was the morning of my daughter's fourth birthday party. Everything was planned for weeks. My family helped me. Everything was set up the night before, everything was ready. And I remember going to bed feeling completely fine. I wasn't nervous at all. Like I was prepared. For whatever reason, I woke up that morning feeling sick as a dog. Like I had the stomach ache, sweating, full panic. I couldn't get out of bed. I literally couldn't get out of bed. And I remember thinking, like, how is this happening right now? I have a house full of people coming over in a few hours, decorations to finish. I had to get myself ready, get Louise ready for her big day, and Elsa was coming. So it was like this huge, huge thing. But the waves of anxiety and nausea just kept coming over me. And I remember genuinely not knowing how I was going to get dressed. And I was like, what am I canceling this today? Like, what am I doing? And I texted you from my bed. I don't know if you remember this.
I do.
And I told you what was happening. And you responded immediately. And you told me, take 5 deep breaths, and that you were going to send me distance Reiki so I could get up and get ready. And honestly, that was the moment I became a true believer, because when I tell you, after those 5 breaths, I felt the Reiki. Like I felt my body calm down. Like I mean it. Like I felt it. And I was able to get up. The panic started to lift, and I was able to get out of bed. I got in the shower. I literally pictured all of that fear and anxiety washing down the drain. And then I went on to have the most amazing day celebrating my daughter. And it was almost like that morning didn't happen, which was all thanks to you and the Reiki, because it was that moment I realized, like, wow, this energy is real. Like, I could feel it even across space and time, right? Like, so at that point, I didn't want to just keep receiving Reiki. I wanted to understand it, and I wanted to learn how to do this for myself and eventually for other people too. But at that point, I really was like, I need to learn how to do this for myself.
And I think sometimes that's why things like that happen, right?
Yeah,
You became overwhelmed in order to see the vision and the potential and your path forward.
I agree completely. In retrospect, in the time during it, you're just like, why is this happening?
As we continued working together, what began to change for you?
My mindset, for sure. That was the biggest shift. Reiki finally allowed me to come back to myself and kind of have that peace and that calm to reconnect with my intuition, my spirituality, my spirit team, and God. During that initial period of grief, I really shut everything out. Like, I lost my connection to so many things I once believed in because I was so angry. I couldn't understand why certain things happened, and I think a part of me closed off because of that. But Reiki slowly helped me open that door again, start trusting, trusting in myself, trusting in that intuition, and trust that I was supported even when I didn't have all the answers. And I think that was such a big piece for me because so much of my anxiety came from trying to control everything. And Reiki helped me release.
That's the beautiful thing about Reiki. You don't need to be fixed. You just need to come back to yourself and be.
Yeah.
So, did you notice yourself responding differently to stress or anxiety at this point?
Yes, I was learning how to recognize the pattern, right? Like, instead of immediately reacting to anxiety or going back to this like control mode, I started creating space between that feeling and my response. So I could say, okay, I'm feeling stressed right now, but I don't have to spiral. I don't have to jump into all of these behaviors to try to control the situation. I learned that I could just pause, kind of feel the anxious energy, acknowledge it, call it for what it is, allow it to move through me, and almost like picture it in a cloud passing by. And that was actually a big shift because for a while I tried the opposite approach. I got to a point where I was like, no, I'm going to pretend I don't have anxiety. I'm going to, just try to push it away. But when I did that, when I tried to fight it or ignore it, it usually came back even stronger later, which was not fun. So instead, I started practicing acceptance, just saying, okay, I feel a little anxious today. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm safe. My family's safe. I'm okay. This feeling can be here and it will pass. So I stopped fighting myself so much.
That's great. Because sometimes healing isn't that anxiety completely disappears, it's that we develop a different relationship with it. And it seems like that's what you did.
Yeah,
Instead
definitely.
of fighting with it, you rode the wave.
Rode the wave. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I will never sit here and say that I don't experience anxiety anymore because of course I do. I'm human. But now my relationship with it is completely different. Now it feels more like anxious moments instead of living in a constant anxious state. And I'm not always like waiting for a panic attack to happen or worrying about a panic attack coming on. And now I'm starting to recognize sometimes it's just normal nerves. Like today, I woke up and I was a little nervous about, speaking on your podcast. And then also recognizing that sometimes it's just excitement. Like, oh, actually, Alyse, you're just excited. Like you're not
Yeah.
nervous. You know, I just forgot how to feel excited because sometimes it feels so much like, nervousness. It just then starts spiraling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now when I have a little twinge of a feeling, I can ask myself like, why is this coming up? What is this trying to tell me? And is this even mine? Is the big question. Because now that I understand my energy better, I could recognize when I might be picking up on what's around me. Like, is my husband feeling burnt out because of work? Is my daughter nervous about her first swimming lesson? Is it a client's energy that I'm feeling? Because that's been really interesting. Like, as I started practicing Reiki, because now I notice I can feel a client's energy from the moment they book before they even walk in the studio. So now it's just trying to check in with myself and see, like, how am I feeling? And then noticing when those feelings come through, like, oh, I don't think that's mine. And I could let it pass and I could move through it. And I could ask my spirit team even say, okay, I received the message. I understand what this is. I don't need to hold on to it anymore.
That's great. At what point did you decide you wanted to learn Reiki yourself?
Honestly, I feel like the interest was always there, even before I knew what to call it. I was always drawn to spirituality. I loved using my tarot cards. I was always fascinated by psychics and mediums, the afterlife, our spirit team, angels, God, fate, our higher selves, all of it. I remember even as a kid wanting a magic 8 ball, like those little toys, because I thought, oh, perfect, I can just ask this and know everything, which is funny looking back now. And growing up, you know, I'm Italian, so there was always those little superstitions, all the funny little, like, your palm is itchy, all these superstitious things that we believed in. So I think that curiosity was always around me in some way. But for me, a lot of my spiritual connection ties back to my grandparents, who are very much part of my spirit team now. And it's very normal in my house to just talk out loud to Nan and Pop, and that connection has always felt natural to me. So I actually have a psychic friend who always told me years ago that she saw me practicing Reiki one day and using my tarot cards in sessions. But at the time, I barely knew anything about Reiki. I was working full time as a graphic designer, and that just seemed like a completely different world. I kind of just brushed it off, like, okay, like that's cool. But for some reason, that conversation always stayed in the back of my mind. And I always felt like I had intuitive abilities. I just didn't know where to go with them or how to develop them. So I remember again messaging you, asking you if you knew anyone I could work with as a spiritual mentor, because there are so many online coaches and programs, and I really wanted your opinion. I wanted someone I trusted. And I remember you just saying, like, well, you could start with Reiki, and something just clicked. And then when you told me that you taught Reiki, like, forget it. That was it. The teacher presented herself. Another divine, timing moment.
That is very interesting because my desire to develop my spiritual gifts also led me to Reiki. Many sensitive people spend years believing something is wrong with them when they're actually processing the world very deeply. How has Reiki helped you to understand your sensitivity differently?
Reiki helped me realize that being sensitive wasn't the issue. For so long, I think I saw my sensitivity as something that made life harder. Like, why do I feel so deeply? Why does everything affect me so much? But Reiki changed the way I looked at it, and it kind of created this realization that I didn't need to stop caring. I didn't need to stop feeling deeply. That's very much part of my gift. And I needed to learn how to, just to understand my energy, protect it, and set boundaries so I wasn't carrying everything on my own. Because that sensitivity can be a beautiful thing when you know how to work with it, especially in the work that we're doing. Again, it allows me to connect deeply with people. It allows me to hold space for my clients and my loved ones, and it's what helps me do the work that I do now. Again, I just needed to learn how to use it and not let it overwhelm me.
And today you're a Reiki master and have your own practice, Fox and Moon.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you personally?
Being a Reiki master is an honor, a gift, and a responsibility that I don't take lightly. The fact that God and the universe allow me to be a channel for this beautiful white life force Reiki energy, and allows me to hold space for other people on their healing journey is something I'm incredibly grateful for. And I truly believe I was guided to this path for a reason. And looking back now, I think going through such a difficult time emotionally opened a door I may never would have found otherwise. As painful as it was, it pushed me to search for healing, to reconnect with myself, and eventually led me here. So I'm grateful for that. And now I get to create the kind of space for others that I needed during that time. And I also just have to acknowledge that I didn't get here alone. And I'm so blessed and grateful for the support of my family, my amazing husband, who's always been by my side in every lifetime, and my mom, who's my best friend, and my beautiful, caring daughter, and my close circle of the women in my life, my cousins, my aunts, my sisters, I call them. So they believe in me, and they believed in me through every step of this journey, and they have seen the change in me from Reiki, and that support has meant everything. And I honestly am blessed, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. Like, they gave me that push, like, Alyse, you're supposed to be doing this. It makes you feel good, and you're helping people. Like, this is what you're meant to do. And that just means everything to me, because I don't think everyone has that unwavering support all the time.
No, they don't. So recognizing and having that gratitude for that support in your life is huge. And also realizing and being able to look at the misfortune and the down times in your life in a way that it brought you to where you are today. And many times we go through things and we survive them and we learn how to heal from them. And then we're able to share that gift with others to help them through, to turn around, put out a hand and pull them up in their down times. And that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, what has this journey taught you about healing?
I think this journey has taught me that healing isn't this destination that we arrive at. I think a lot of times we think, like, I'm either healed or I'm not. But I'm starting to understand that healing is something we're always moving through. So there's going to be uncomfortable seasons in our lives. But I think sometimes those uncomfortable times are where the biggest growth happens. And not to be cheesy, but I always like to think of a caterpillar in a cocoon. And inside that cocoon, it's not pretty. It's uncomfortable. Everything's changing. It's constricting, and everything's transforming, and the caterpillar doesn't even know what it's becoming yet, right? And then eventually, when it's ready, it breaks out as something completely new and beautiful, and this version that they're always supposed to be. So sometimes I think when we're forced inward, we have to face things and realize things and release things and let go of these old versions of ourselves, especially fear, for my case, before we can step into who we're becoming. And everyone's timeline in that cocoon looks different. And I feel like if you're not making a change, the same themes are going to come up until you kind of are forced to push forward. So for me, Reiki helped me understand that healing isn't about never struggling again. It's about learning and growing and trusting yourself through each transformation.
That is so beautiful and inspiring for anyone out there on a healing journey. How has your own experience with anxiety and healing influenced the way you work with your clients?
It allows me to have such a deep level of compassion and understanding because I've lived my own version of it. And that doesn't mean that I understand everything that everyone's going through, but I have my own version, so I can feel that compassion for people. So when someone walks into my studio dealing with anxiety, grief, overwhelm, or just feeling disconnected from themselves, I understand how heavy that can feel. And I know what it feels like to be stuck in fear. I know what it feels like to want so badly to feel better, but not know where to start. And I think because I've been on the other side of that Reiki table, I know how important it is for someone to feel safe and supported and understood. And I never look at my clients as someone that needs to be fixed. I see them as people who are carrying things sometimes for a really long time, and they just need a space where they can finally put some of it down. And that's what Reiki gave me, and that's the space I hope I'm creating for other people.
And I'm sure you are, because as we know, healing can only happen in safety, and you're creating that safe space. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing now.
So, of course, I'm doing intuitive Reiki energy healing, and my practice is called Fox and Moon. I opened my Reiki studio at the beginning of this year in Brick, New Jersey, and it has allowed me to create this beautiful space for people to slow down, reconnect with themselves, and uncover where they may need healing, support, or awareness. I like to tell my clients it's like you're coming to see a friend. Like we sit down and we have a conversation first. We might pull an oracle card if we want, and then we get into checking the chakras, and we get into the actual healing. And every session is different, every person is different, and that's what makes this work so beautiful, and it amazes me every time. Sometimes sessions are emotional, sometimes they're peaceful, sometimes they bring forward things we didn't even realize we were holding on to. But watching people reconnect with themselves and leaving lighter is truly such a gift.
And where can listeners connect with you or learn more about your services?
You could follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Fox and Moon Energy. And you can also learn more about my sessions or book with me at foxandmoonenergy.com. I see women for in person sessions at my studio in Brick, and I offer virtual sessions for all clients, men, women, and even pets, near and far.
And those links will all be in today's show notes. If someone listening today is where you once were, anxious, overwhelmed, grieving, exhausted, or feeling disconnected from themselves, what would you want them to know?
You are not alone. Even if I'm the only person you know who has experienced something similar, just know you are not alone in those feelings and you are not broken. And I know how scary it can feel. I know how exhausting and debilitating anxiety can be. I know what it feels like to be stuck in fear and wondering if you're ever going to feel like yourself again. But I truly believe we are all here for a reason. And sometimes these uncomfortable, difficult times in our lives become the places where we grow the most. And again, healing isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. It's little moments, it's little changes, it's one step at a time. And even for me, you know, one of my biggest realizations for my own healing happened very recently. I finally allowed myself to start releasing some of the grief I've been holding on to. I had this huge aha moment where I realized I can still love and honor the people I've lost without needing to carry the heaviness of that grief every day. And that is way easier said than done. I mean, I'm telling you, this happened like weeks ago. But since receiving Reiki, practicing Reiki, and connecting deeper spiritually, I kept receiving the same message from my grandparents and my loved ones in spirit. And it was literally like, when are you going to let this go? We are okay. We are happy. And we want you to live your life and be happy too. And I think for so long, a part of me felt like letting go of the pain meant letting go of them. But I realized that's not true, and that the love stays and the connection stays. And I don't have to carry the suffering to prove how much I love them. And it was just nice to finally understand that. I think that deeper healing happens when we give ourselves the space to understand what's underneath it all.
Alyse, what you just said so resonates with me, as my journey to Reiki also began in grief when I lost my parents. And having that connection and knowing that they are always around me, they are always with me, but I don't need to sit in that heaviness, is life changing and very healing. So, your parting words for our listeners out there.
If you are struggling, just keep taking one step forward. And I'll leave you with one more visual. Think about the lotus flower. It starts growing in the dark, muddy, murky depths of the water. and it has to move through all of that before it, moves through the water towards the surface and the light. And it keeps growing up and up and up until it eventually emerges and blooms into this beautiful flower. And I think we're the same way. Sometimes our hardest times are the ones, again, transforming us even before we see what we're becoming.
Alyse, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think one of the most powerful reminders from today's conversation is that healing doesn't always happen because we force it. Sometimes it begins when we finally feel safe enough to slow down, listen, and receive support. If today's episode resonated with you, remember that healing is rarely about becoming someone new. Often, it's about returning to who you've always been, beneath the stress, anxiety, grief, and overwhelm. If you want to dive deeper into your healing journey, take a look at our Healing Waves workbook collection of companion journals to go along with all of these topics. Thank you for listening to the Healing Waves Reiki podcast. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who may need it. Subscribe and leave a review so more people can find this work. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and keep healing. This podcast is intended for informational, educational, and inspirational purposes only. The content shared on this podcast is not medical, psychological, legal, or professional advice, and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any condition. Always seek the guidance of a qualified healthcare provider, mental health professional, or other licensed professional regarding your specific needs. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the host. Listener discretion and personal responsibility are advised.